Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Nix, and welcome to this week's version of NASCAR Mailbox on Frontstretch. I'm covering for Jared Haas this week. He will resume NASCAR Mailbox next week. I have selected two questions that our loyal subscribers posed to us that I will answer here today. Starting off, our first question is from Massified. What was Kyle Busch's thoughts on a top 10 finish and not having an accident for once in the last five races? The surprising thing about this is that TV did not interview Kyle Busch after the race. I know the race was chaotic and a lot of different storylines were going on, but as far as I'm aware, Kyle Busch was not interviewed in any capacity following the race at the Chicago Street Course. He did, however, post on social media that it was a wet and wild day. He was on slick tires. He was making a lot of ground up. He was not involved in any incidents, and he was thrilled to come home with a ninth place finish. And he should be. It's been a month of misery for Kyle Busch, and after having three finishes of 35th or worse in the last four races, you are going to take any positive result you can get. Now, there's only 36 cars in the grid most times. So if you finish 35th or worse three times in a calendar month, that's a pretty bad result. It is undoubtedly one of the worst statistical stretches of Kyle Busch's career. He's been around for 2 decades. Obviously, he's very resilient. He can recover from the bad stretch that he's in. And he's the type of driver, if he hit this ninth place finish, for example, he can recover from this and really put together some good results. And he's going to need to do that in order to contend for a playoff spot. But it's there. You could say his month of misery is finally over. We will know for sure this week at Pocono, like if he's running in the top 10 again, for example, like if he's in the top 10 the entire race, average running position in the single digits, or even around 10th or 15th. That's a major improvement from where he's been last month or so. So I think if Kyle Busch finishes in the top 10 or top 15 at Pocono, his month of misery will be firmly behind him. Although I would argue that it might already be behind him, where he's the type of driver, he only needs one good race to really rattle off a bunch of solid finishes, top 10s, top 15s. I don't expect him to win this weekend at Pocono, but I would not be surprised if he had a very strong run. And like you said, I am surprised that TV did not speak to him after the race. The second question comes from Ryan O'Reilly 9283, and he asks, "Is there a chance we see the race countdown at more races instead of unlimited green white checkered attempts? And what do the drivers think of unlimited overtimes?" So I'm going to answer this in reverse order. So I'm going to answer a second question first. Most drivers I've seen are supportive of unlimited overtimes. Obviously, Logano was asked about it after the race and after the national race, and he was unsurprisingly very supportive of the rule. It does not surprise me one iota that Logano would be a huge fan of the rule. But many of the drivers, especially a lot of the older drivers, they experienced and they raced when NASCAR either had one overtime or they had three overtimes. Of course, everybody remembers the overtime line. There have been enough bad experiments that NASCAR has tried that I think most drivers, by and large, are okay with unlimited green white checkers. I think they're aware that the five overtimes is not a trend, it is not a pattern, it is simply an aberration and a one off. I would be very surprised if we had more than two overtimes or two or three overtimes at any race the rest of the season. It just doesn't happen. This happens basically once every couple of years or so. You get a race that has at least like three or four overtimes. Five overtimes is unheard of. It will almost certainly never happen again, at least not for several years. And I think that's why a lot of the drivers are still supportive of it, at least that I've seen. And then is there a chance we see the race count on more races, like you said? I think so. NASCAR did a really solid job of ending the race at a consistent time. They let the drivers and teams know well in advance. It was nearly an hour in advance, maybe even before that, more than an hour in advance. That the drivers and teams knew, okay, this race is ending at 8:20 local time. So we're working backwards from that. It's not like the street race last year where they kept cutting the lap counter down, they kept changing it. Or same with New Hampshire with the darkness a few years ago, where we literally had no idea when the race is going to end. So I think with tracks and races that could be affected by darkness, obviously the street course, New Hampshire, think like a Dover or a Talladega, for example. If darkness does become a major factor, then you will definitely see this countdown timer more often. And I'm a fan of it. You're ending the race at a specific time, a specific point. and the drivers and teams are now able to work backwards from that. It eliminates a lot of chaos that we saw in 2021 at Loudon, last year in the street race. So I think we could see the countdown timer at places where it's affected by darkness. It will not replace unlimited overtimes. You're only going to see it when it's affected by weather and darkness. But you're definitely going to see it more. And that concludes this week's edition of NASCAR Mailbox. Jared Haas will resume NASCAR Mailbox next week. I'm very happy to fill in for him here. Thank you all for watching, and thank you all for supporting us.
Steven Stump of Frontstretch.com here. Come back for more great racing videos, and if you like us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.